Hi and welcome to Chinatown Heritage Centre in Pagoda Street, Singapore. This Chinese Heritage Centre is located right in the middle of Chinatown and it is a very interesting place to visit. First opened in 2002, the Chinatown Heritage Centre underwent a series of renovations. It last closed its doors again in 2021. Finally, after closing for 4 years later, the Chinatown Heritage Centre reopened itself recently and I'm among the first to get a sneak preview of the soft opening. As part of the soft opening promotion, Tuesday ends at 16 February. For Singapore residents only, we can go in for free. As for foreign visitors, the admission is $10 during this period. The first exhibition hall is Cheong Tailor that you first come across. Basically, this part of the exhibition hall is a reenactment of what an old school tailor shop front would look like in the last century, probably more than 80 years ago. There is this tailor workbench, cupboard full of suits and jackets. Seeing this, I almost forgot that Singapore used to be the sweatshop for Western suits and jackets long time back. Behind the curtain that separates the shop front and the living quarter, that's where the tailoring operation takes place. I see the Rediffusion radio set, an old school charcoal iron, and a Singer brand sewing machine. The airwell is used as a ventilation to the entire shop house, and a good place for one to do the washing and air the laundry. And how do I know? I used to stay in such warehouse when I was a kid. Further in, I see an apprentice bedroom. Normally, no one would like to stay next to the kitchen, other than the lowly rank apprentice. The toilet and kitchen is located at the end of the shop house. The Chinatown Heritage Centre closely reenact as far as possible the dimly lit toilet area and the stuffy kitchen. As a kid, I used to hate going into the dark and grimy, slimy kitchen when I stayed over there. Seeing that certainly brought back nightmarish memories for me. Going up the steep and dark staircase up to level 2. As I walk up the staircase, I still have this phobia of rolling down such staircase, since falling down as a kid was part and parcel of my childhood. At this juncture, I need to caveat myself by saying that I do not exactly know the layout of the Heritage Centre and how this place is curated. Reason being, this free of charge trip does not include a curator. Instead, using my own personal experience as a former occupant of the shop house, so please take what I said with a pinch of salt. Normally, the owner of a shop house would use the second level as bedrooms. The owner of the shop house would normally divide the floor space into rooms and maximize his returns by subletting out to outsiders as much as possible using wooden walls as separators. It is a norm back then that the owner would let out to unrelated families. In this case, to hawkers, to vendors, and even to a family of 10 people. These rooms are dark, small, and badly ventilated. Such poorly ventilated rooms are a hotspot for diseases such as tuberculosis and other airborne diseases. Those rooms with windows facing the street tend to be the bigger one and the more ventilated and well-lit ones. These rooms are normally reserved for their own family members or people who can afford the much higher rental, such as the physician and the ma-jie, who is the female equivalent of a butler, usually working for a rich family. I continue walking towards the back end of the shophouse of the second level, passing through different families separated with each other units by wooden walls. Normally, the entrance to these rooms is by way of a wooden door, but during daytime, the door is overlaid by a full body length cloth for privacy and for better ventilation purposes. I pass by the family units, looking into their rooms. Each room offers a peep into their lifestyle and their livelihood. Even without looking at the signage outside the room, I have a rough idea of what the occupation earns for a living. That is, by simply looking at the contents of the room. Not surprisingly, at the end of the corridor, which is normally the innermost of the shop house, one can find the common kitchen and common toilet. Back in those days, there is no such concept of attached bathroom, and obviously the toilet flushing systems are not invented yet. That explains why these toilets are located in the far end of the house and is shared among the occupants living on the same floor. Likewise, the kitchen is also shared among everyone living at the same level. I am sure that there are some kind of system of rationing these valuable resources among everyone living here. Going up to level 3, the style of the exhibit has changed. Right at the end of the staircase, I see a huge junk boat with a TV screen. Periodically, there is an explanation of the historical events of how the Chinese immigrant left China mainland into Singapore by these boats. One thing I find it perplexing is that the explanation and presentation are all in Chinese language. I'm not sure how foreign tourists will be able to understand all this. Or maybe the museum has a target audience in mind. Personally, I find the presentation a little bit preachy, and that small little television does not do much to hold the attention span of visitor walking to and fro. There is another multimedia presentation about the coolies in the warehouse working and living condition at the other side of the shop house. While I find this presentation much better than the junk book presentation next door, I'm not too attracted to that as well. I go further into the shop house building where there are sections showing on how Singapore society was like in the 1900s. These exhibits touch on the secret societies, vices, and other societal norms during that time. I like how the cloth curtains are used to demarcate different exhibition areas. This section talks about the various origin of the Chinese surnames, going all the way up the family tree to where these surnames originate. Say for example, the Tan or the Chen surname has its roots back in China, Henan province. I find this very interactive and interesting, as most Chinese would like to know more about where their ancestors come from through their surnames. I'm walking through a series of reenactment of the Chinatown scenes, like the wooden clogs, the bamboo poles hanging out colored laundries like flags. These are common sights back then. I see the Chinese calligraphy and barbershop that operates out of the shophouses corner. And that's the big stage that housed the Chinese opera appearing during major festive periods. Once you see Chinese opera stage, definitely you will be able to find the peanut seller providing snacks to the opera goer. There is even a portable theatre when one can enjoy a short movie for just 5 cents. For all you know, this could be the earliest form of anime that we see now. There is a clear description of the major Chinese festival that the locals celebrate back in those days. I can see that there are not too much of a difference in this festival, and we can all resonate to the celebrations. I am mildly surprised that the Chinese Heritage Centre showcased the exotic animal markets. Singapore has certainly come a long way from eating everything that moves to a more aligned to mainstream diets. Morbid topics like the streets of the dead are dealt with a light touch. I guess if you do not read the explanation, one would not know that one of the streets in Chinatown used to house people who are terminally ill, somewhat like the modern-day hospice do. I thought the Heritage Centre can expand more into this, which can also talk about the Chinese funeral rites. That said, I guess this is a little bit too morbid to touch on. Traditional crafts are touched on in this series of exhibitions. One can see the traditional Chinese medicine to the Taoist deities, vendors, and the goldsmith shop. A major aspect of local Singapore culture has to be the food culture. A part of the entire section of this exhibition hall is dedicated to all my childhood food. It is pretty much a touch and go thing. Frankly, if you never grow up with these names that I'm well aware of, this could just be some static display. I see traditional food represented by Dong Ya Coffee Shop, Lim Chi Guan Ba Kwa, Tiong Heng Egg Tart, Spring Court Restaurant, Pek Sin Chun Tea Merchant, for example. It is so gratifying seeing these familiar names. Even though these are merely static exhibits, I thought it would be better if this traditional household name set up a store in the Heritage Centre. They are display of mobile hawkers serving traditional hawker food like satay, fishball noodle, Hainanese chicken rice, and wak kueh, for example. These mobile hawker stores are the first version of our modern hawker centre. A hawker centre in the last century, particularly during Singapore colonial period, would likely appear as a collection of makeshift, often unhygienic, street stalls with minimum shelter where food was prepared and sold directly on the roadside. Customers would eat on basic stools or standing, often lacking proper sanitation and organization comparing to the clean, structured hawker center that we see today. The Chinese Heritage Centre is the gateway for all visitors to trace the footsteps of Singapore early pioneers and discover the personal stories of these people who made Chinatown their home. It is located within 3 beautiful restored shophouses on Pagoda Street. The Chinatown Heritage Centre is the only place in Singapore that has recreated the original interior of its shophouses tenants in the 1950s. This offers a rare glimpse into the lives of Chinatown early residents.